The man I had a crush on went blind. I pretended to be his fiance and took care of him for a year. When the real one came back, I was kicked out of the villa. I went abroad to work alone. Little did I know, he was desperately searching for me back home. Lucas, it's time for your medicine. I lowered my voice as I walked into the bedroom carrying a glass of water. The man sitting on the edge of the bed turned his head. The sunset fell on his handsome face, gilding it with a golden edge. However, his eyes were unfocused. Why are you only coming now? You're half an hour late, Lucas complained, but smiled gently, his hand reaching toward my voice like a man following a distant light. The company had some urgent business. I mimicked Emma's tone and placed the glass in his hand. Lucas was my husband, and I was playing the role of his childhood sweetheart. A year ago, Lucas was in a car accident that left him temporarily blind, with an unknown recovery time. His fiancée Emma was proud and arrogant, naturally unwilling to marry a blind man, and had fled abroad to hide. My brother had a heart attack and urgently needed surgery, with the huge medical bills weighing on me. It just so happened that the Smith family was secretly looking for someone, needing a voice actor similar in all aspects to play Emma, and I was the best candidate. I had studied vocal music and had excellent grades. We quickly reached an agreement. Honey, what's for dinner tonight? Lucas smiled as he played with my fingers. He worked from home every day and only relaxed when I got off work. The housekeeper made your favorite dishes. I'll bring them up in a bit. Okay. Lucas caressed my neck and kissed me. I blushed, unable to push him away, and instead had my wrists pinned down by him. My heart raced, even though I had experienced this many times before, but every time I would get nervous, afraid of accidentally revealing myself. Lucas's hand stroked my waist and landed on my stomach, looking puzzled. It's been so long. How come there's still no movement? These things depend on fate, and I've been quite tired from work lately. I probably need to take better care of my body first. I lied, since he couldn't see my micro expressions anyway. Our relationship was just an agreement, and I always took my pills on time. Looks like I need to try harder. Lucas laughed and bit my ear. Seeing that he wanted to continue, I immediately pushed him away. I'll go check if dinner is ready. I heard his light laughter behind me. I leaned against the hallway wall, my face flushed and my heart pounding. The thought that his gentleness and everything was meant for his fiancée suddenly felt like a bucket of cold water had been poured over me. This man was gentle and wise, with excellent manners. It was hard not to fall for him. Moreover, I had liked him for a very long time. Downstairs, Lucas's mother Vivian was waiting for me at the dining table. Perfect timing. I have good news for you. Emma has been found, and Dr. Lee also said that Lucas's eyes are showing signs of recovery. You'll be able to step down soon. Vivian smiled, obviously genuinely happy. I forced a smile. Congratulations. It's finally over. Vivian noticed the kiss marks on my neck and immediately frowned. Arya, don't you dare get any ideas. If you slip up or have any ulterior motives in these final days, you won't get a penny of your brother's follow-up treatment fees. I understand, Mrs. Smith. I nodded coldly, ignoring her obvious disdain. In private, Vivian wouldn't let me call her mom, because deep down, she always saw me as a poor knockoff, and it was my good fortune to be touched by her son. In her mind, only someone from a noble family like Emma was truly worthy of Lucas. If it weren't for not wanting to lose face on the engagement day, she wouldn't have let a poor girl like me set foot in the Smith family at all. On the engagement day, she made me cover my face with a veil and just go through the motions. After dinner, I brought a glass of milk to Lucas. Walking into the bedroom, he was on the phone with his assistant, listening to a report on the company's situation. I sat nearby, my heart pounding, repeating the script I had prepared in my head. Lucas hung up the phone and reached out to hold my hand. Let's go out and play tomorrow. It's the weekend. But I need to visit my family tomorrow. He hooked his fingers with mine and smiled. Then I'll wait for you. I looked at him wistfully. The agreement would end tomorrow, and tonight would be our last night together. Lucas, drink your milk and get some rest. I placed the glass in his hand. Lucas finished drinking, with milk residue on the corner of his mouth. I raised my hand to wipe it off. My fingertips brushed across the corner of his lips. Lucas felt a tingle in his heart and kissed me accurately. My wife is so passionate tonight. Lucas, take care of yourself. Early the next morning, when I went downstairs, the servants had already packed my things. Vivian stood there, staring at me with a harsh look, full of disgust. Here's your money. The password is your birthday. I took it expressionlessly and walked towards the entrance. Suddenly, footsteps sounded on the stairs. Lucas had woken up at some point. Honey, when will you be back? My throat tightened. Later. Then I'll wait for you. Looking at his handsome face, I steeled my heart and turned to leave. I dragged my luggage to my previous cheap rental apartment, finally feeling relieved. Even though it was very run down here, at least I didn't have to watch other people's faces anymore. After my brother's surgery, I took him abroad. This was part of the agreement. When Emma came back, I was to disappear from their sight. Before going abroad, I saw Lucas's appearance after regaining his sight in the news. He appeared radiant at a charity gala, with the elegant and proud Emma standing beside him. They truly were a perfect match. I couldn't help but think back to the New Year's party in high school, where they stood gracefully on the main stage. I was a year below them, but I had known about Lucas for a long time. The hot topic among girls was always about handsome and excellent boys. I fell for him just because of a small incident. There were always beggars near the school, and everyone would walk away in fear and disgust. Only Lucas wouldn't. He would always politely buy them breakfast. At that time, my family hadn't fallen on hard times yet, and I could often secretly watch him at school. Later, my father lost all our family assets through gambling and jumped to his death. I was forced to transfer schools, working part-time while studying. Life abroad wasn't easy. Unfamiliar with the place and having to take care of William, who was still recovering. It took half a year before I gradually got used to this foreign land. I worked as a vocal teacher at a small institute and played the piano at a French restaurant when I had time. Most of the money given by the Smith family was spent on medical care. There would be many expenses in the future, so I had to work harder. To my surprise, I ran into Lucas at the restaurant. With his restored vision, he looked even more handsome than on the news. He was discussing business with someone and didn't look at me once. It was normal for Lucas not to recognize me, as he had never seen me before. But I was unsettled, and my piano playing was a mess. mess. The restaurant manager glanced at me with a warning look. I took a break and went to the restroom to calm down. As I came out, I bumped into someone. I knocked the person's phone to the ground and hurriedly went to pick it up. "I'm so sorry." Looking up, I found Lucas staring intently at me. I tried to remain calm, saw that the phone was intact, and quickly returned it to him. Our fingertips touched for a few seconds, and I quickly withdrew as if electrocuted. "Please check if your phone is okay. If it is, I'll be on my way." He didn't say anything. I felt uneasy under his gaze, smiled politely, and turned to leave. A hesitant and probing voice came from behind. "Honey?" I paused, pretending to be surprised as I turned back. "What did you say?" He fell silent, his gaze very disappointed. Sitting back at the piano, my mind was in chaos. Why did Lucas call me that just now? Was he deliberately testing me? I continued playing, for the first time hoping time would pass quickly. The gaze from not far away falling on me made me feel uneasy. After the last piece ended, I let out a sigh. As I was about to leave, Lucas walked over to me. "You played well." He smiled slightly and took out some tips to give me. I looked at the bills, not wanting to accept them. But the manager not far away was winking at me, afraid I would offend him. "Thank you," I stiffly accepted. But he didn't let go, and I looked at him in confusion. Suddenly, his hand reached out and gripped my fingers. I was startled and instinctively wanted to pull back, but he held on tighter. His long fingers swept across the back of my hand, as if searching for something. Abruptly, his fingertips paused. His gaze locked onto me, and the corners of his mouth curved up. "It really is you." I lowered my eyes guiltily and pushed him away forcefully. "You've got the wrong person, sir." "Is that so? Then why are you so nervous?" He stared at me intently, excited yet annoyed. I looked at the floor helplessly. Fortunately, his business partner came over to find him, seeming to have an urgent matter. Taking advantage of their conversation, I quickly slipped away. "Wait!" Lucas called out urgently, only managing to grab a bit of my clothes. I was familiar with this place and nimbly escaped through the back door. Seeing that he didn't chase after me, I finally let out a sigh of relief. I was very afraid that Lucas would come to settle accounts with me. If he knew that all his gentleness during that time was directed at a strange woman, what would he think? Feel hurt? Disgusted? I clenched my fingers, my chest feeling stuffy.
For several days, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I remembered the way Lucas had looked at me in the restaurant. As if he already knew. As if he refused to let me disappear again. I deliberately changed my work schedule, taking the afternoon shift instead of the evening one. For nearly 2 weeks, I never saw him again. Only then did I finally relax. Maybe I had been overthinking everything. One rainy afternoon, just as class ended, my phone rang. "Excuse me, are you Miss Aria?" "Yes. This is City Hospital. Your brother, William, suddenly collapsed during rehabilitation. Please come immediately." My face turned white. "I'll be there right away." I rushed into the rain without even grabbing an umbrella. By the time I reached the hospital, I was soaked. "How is he?" "The doctors are still examining him." I leaned against the wall, trembling. William was my only family. I had already lost my parents. I couldn't lose him too. Just then, a warm coat settled over my shoulders. I froze. A familiar scent drifted into my nose. Fresh cedar. The same scent that used to linger on Lucas every night. I slowly turned around. Lucas stood behind me. His black umbrella was still dripping with rain. "You're soaked," he said softly. I instinctively stepped back. "Mr. Smith, why are you here?" "I followed you. I knew you'd come to the hospital." My expression changed. "You followed me?" "I've been following you for 12 days. I know where you teach. I know where you play piano. I know which bus you take home. I know you skip lunch to save money." Each sentence made my heart sink lower. "You investigated me?" "I investigated my wife." His calm answer stunned me. "I've told you before. My wife disappeared. So I had to find her." I clenched my fists. "I'm not your wife." He stared into my eyes. "No. You aren't Emma. But you are the woman who stayed beside me for an entire year." My breathing stopped. He knew. He really knew. "How?" Lucas smiled bitterly. "You really thought I was that stupid?" The first day my eyesight recovered. I saw the woman standing beside my bed. It wasn't Emma. It was you. Aria's pupils contracted. "You could already see?" "I recovered 3 days before you left." Her lips trembled. "Then, why didn't you expose me?" Lucas laughed quietly. "Because I wanted to know. I wanted to know who the woman was. Who held my hand every night. Who whispered stories until I fell asleep. Who secretly cried in the bathroom because she thought I couldn't hear. Arya's eyes instantly turned red. You knew. I knew. I also knew my mother threatened you. I knew about your brother. I knew Emma never came back until after you left. Every word shattered the walls she had spent months building. I searched everywhere after you disappeared. I cancelled my engagement. I argued with my family. I went back to the apartment. I even kept waiting every weekend. Because you told me you'd come back later. Lucas lowered his head and laughed at himself. I waited. Like an idiot. 4 months. Tears streamed down Arya's cheeks. I didn't come back because I was afraid. Afraid of what? She looked at him through blurry eyes. I was afraid that once you saw my face, you'd regret every gentle thing you ever did. Lucas slowly stepped closer. He gently wiped away her tears with his thumb. I've regretted only one thing. She looked up. I regret that I never saw your face while you were loving me. Arya's tears fell even harder. You don't understand. She shook her head desperately. Everything between us was built on a lie. I stole Emma's place. I lied to you every single day. I even let you call me your wife. Her voice cracked. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Lucas was silent for a long moment. Then he quietly asked. When I had nightmares, who stayed awake until morning? Me. When I refused to eat because I couldn't accept going blind, who spent hours coaxing me? Me. When I stumbled into the garden and almost fell into the pond, who jumped in after me without thinking? Me. When I said I was afraid the darkness would never end, who held my hand and promised I wouldn't face it alone? Me. Her voice had become a whisper. Lucas nodded. Those things weren't lies. They happened. They were real. But you lied about your name. He looked directly into her eyes. You never lied about your heart. Arya covered her mouth as sobs escaped her. I fell in love with you. I knew I shouldn't. I reminded myself every day that none of it belonged to me. The room wasn't mine. The family wasn't mine. You weren't mine. So I kept taking those pills. Lucas frowned. What pills? She lowered her head. The birth control pills. I never wanted to complicate your life. I knew one day Emma would come back. If I became pregnant, everyone would suffer. Lucas closed his eyes. His chest ached. He remembered all the times he had teasingly rested his hand on her stomach. He had thought fate simply wasn't on their side. He had never imagined she had quietly carried that burden alone. I'm sorry, he whispered. You don't have to apologize. No. I do. He looked more remorseful than she had ever seen him. I kept asking why there wasn't a baby. I didn't realize every time I asked. I was making you more afraid. Arya couldn't answer. At that moment, a pair of high heels echoed down the hallway. Lucas. Both of them turned. Emma stood at the end of the corridor in an expensive white coat, Vivian beside her. Vivian's face darkened the moment she saw Arya. I knew it. I knew you'd try to seduce him again. Emma frowned as she looked between them. So this is the substitute. Arya instinctively stepped back. I was just leaving. She turned to go. Lucas immediately caught her wrist. Don't. His voice was firm. I'm not letting you run again. Vivian strode over angrily. Lucas. Have you lost your mind? Emma is your fiance. Lucas slowly released a breath before looking at his mother. No. He reached into his coat pocket. Taking out a velvet box, he opened it. Inside was the diamond engagement ring Emma had once worn. He walked over to Emma and placed the box into her hands. I'm sorry. I should have ended this much sooner. Emma stared at the ring in disbelief. What do you mean? Lucas's expression remained calm. The engagement is over. I have someone I love. The hallway fell silent. Vivian's face turned deathly pale. Emma laughed once, unable to believe what she had heard. You're choosing her? Lucas answered without hesitation. I'm choosing the woman who never abandoned me when I had nothing. He turned toward Arya. And this time, I'm not going to let anyone send her away again. The corridor became deathly silent. Emma's fingers tightened around the velvet box. Then she laughed. A cold, mocking laugh. So after all that, you fell in love with my stand-in? Lucas looked at her calmly. You were never there. Emma's smile faded. When I lost my sight, you left. When I woke up in darkness, you weren't beside me. When I learned to walk again, you weren't holding my arm. When I couldn't even recognize the faces of the people around me. The only person who stayed with me was Arya. Emma's face stiffened. I left because I was scared. I was only 24. I didn't want to spend my whole life taking care of a blind man. Lucas nodded. I understand. I've never blamed you for leaving. But choices have consequences. You chose to leave. And I chose to let you go. Emma's lips parted, but no words came out. Vivian stepped between them. Lucas. Think carefully. The Johnson family and the Smith family have years of cooperation behind them. If you cancel this marriage now, people will laugh at us. Lucas gave a weary smile. So reputation is still more important than my happiness? Vivian froze. For the past year, you let Arya take Emma's place. You looked down on her every day. You threatened her. You treated her like a disposable tool. His voice became colder. And yet she still stayed. Vivian's face gradually lost all color. Lucas continued. Do you know what I found after she left? No one answered. He took a folded stack of papers from his briefcase. Medical receipts. Bank transfer records. Bills. I investigated everything. Every cent you paid her. Went to William's treatment. She didn't buy luxury bags. She didn't buy jewelry. She didn't even buy herself new clothes. Arya lowered her head. She hadn't wanted him to know. Lucas looked at the worn cuffs of her sweater. Do you know how old this sweater is? Vivian instinctively looked over. I saw pictures from before she came to the Smith house. It's the same one. His voice trembled. She wore the same clothes for over a year. While taking care of me 24 hours a day. Vivian opened her mouth. But you called her greedy. You called her a fake. You said she should be grateful. Tears quietly rolled down Vivian's cheeks. For the first time, she truly had nothing to say. Just then, a doctor hurried out of William's room. Miss Arya? She immediately ran over. How is my brother? The examination is finished. The good news is that he only fainted from overexertion. However, he'll need another procedure within the next few months. Arya's heart sank. How much will it cost? The doctor quoted the number. Her face turned pale. Even after everything she'd earned, she was still far short. She forced herself to smile. I understand. I'll find a way. Before she could say anything else, Lucas spoke. I'll cover it. She immediately turned. No. It's my responsibility. It's mine too. She frowned. It has nothing to do with you. Lucas looked at her quietly. It has everything to do with me. She shook her head firmly. I don't want to owe you anything. You don't. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a thin envelope. I owe you. Confused, Arya accepted it. Inside was a neatly folded agreement. It was the original contract she had signed with the Smith family a year ago. Across every page, written in bold red ink, was one word. Void. At the bottom was Lucas's signature. He smiled softly. The agreement ended the day you left. But my gratitude, my apology, and my feelings, they were never part of any contract. He gently folded her trembling fingers around the papers. So from today onward, if I help you, it won't be because you're pretending to be my wife. His eyes met hers. It'll be because I want to spend the rest of my life earning the chance for you to become my wife for real. Arya's eyes filled with tears once more. This time, she didn't pull her hand away. 3 months later, William's surgery was a complete success. This time Arya paid for part of it herself. The rest came from an interest-free loan Lucas insisted on writing into a proper legal contract after she refused to accept it as a gift. I'll pay every cent back, she had said. I know you will, Lucas had replied with a smile. He never once pressured her to resume their relationship. Instead, he started over. He invited her to coffee. Walked her home after work. Attended William's rehabilitation sessions with her. When she was busy teaching piano, he would quietly wait in the corner until her lessons ended. Little by little, Arya realized something. The gentleman she had loved in secret wasn't only gentle because he thought she was Emma. That kindness had always belonged to Lucas. Half a year later, Arya finally repaid the last installment of the loan. She handed him the receipt proudly. We're even now. Lucas looked at the receipt before carefully folding it into his wallet. No. We've never been even. She frowned. What do you mean? He smiled. You saved me when I couldn't see. I've only just begun repaying that debt. Before she could answer, he knelt on one knee. People passing through the park stopped in surprise. Lucas opened a small velvet box. Inside was a simple diamond ring. This ring belongs to Arya. Not Emma. Not a substitute. Not someone pretending to be anyone else. He looked up at her with eyes that now saw her clearly. The first time I proposed, I couldn't see the woman standing before me. So today, I'd like to do it properly. He took a steady breath. Arya, will you marry me? Tears welled in her eyes. This time, they weren't tears of guilt or fear. They were tears of relief. She laughed through them and nodded. Yes. I will. Lucas slipped the ring onto her finger before standing and pulling her into a gentle embrace. The crowd erupted into applause. William, standing nearby with only a cane instead of a wheelchair now, wiped his eyes dramatically. I've been waiting a whole year for you two to stop being idiots. Everyone burst into laughter. 1 year later, the Smith villa looked different. Not because it had been renovated. Because it had become a home. Vivian stood in the kitchen, awkwardly carrying a bowl of soup. Arya. I made too much again. Arya smiled knowingly. I'll help finish it. Vivian hesitated before quietly saying, thank you. She had apologized countless times over the past year. Although Arya could never forget the pain, she chose not to spend the rest of her life chained to resentment. Forgiveness didn't erase the past. It simply allowed her to move forward. Emma never contacted Lucas again. A few months after the broken engagement, she married someone else and settled overseas. Their lives no longer intersected. One warm spring afternoon, Lucas sat in the garden reading. A little boy toddled across the lawn on unsteady legs. Daddy. Lucas immediately set his book aside and scooped him into his arms. Where's Mommy? The little boy pointed toward the flower beds. There. Arya was crouched among the roses, smiling as she trimmed the blossoms. Lucas walked over carrying their son. You know, he said. I still think about the first day I saw you. Arya raised an eyebrow. The restaurant? He shook his head. No. The morning my eyesight returned, I opened my eyes. And the first person I ever truly saw was you. He leaned down and kissed her forehead. And I think that was the luckiest day of my life. Arya smiled. So was mine. The three of them stood together beneath the blooming roses as the afternoon sunlight filled the garden. Some people enter your life by fate. Others stay because of love. Lucas had once lost his sight. But in the darkness, he had found the person who would become the light of the rest of his life.